Welcome to a world that has taken its first steps beyond gods, beyond magic, beyond intrigue. A world doomed to the plain and mundane. Remnants of the recent dead age have been left behind in the death rattle of its past beauty. Now man walks the earth alone, clawing and cleaving its way to understanding its new role as the sole rulers of the world. Among these blood-soaked nobles lies a kingdom of exceptional ability. What was once a ragtag group of worthless and forgettable individuals has birthed an empire for the ages, one for the people, the good in the world and for hope. However, in recent times, it has been harshly reminded of how unforgiving the world, devoid of wonder, now demands to be. We are met in a solemn silence by a veteran warrior, sitting alone in a cobblestone room sipping his cup of ale. Orion, fresh off the battlefield that was the very castle he now sits in, weary. His silence, however, his moment of peace, is about to be rudely interrupted by his two younger brothers.
I don't believe this.
The bloodthirsty killer wants to save a life.
And the strategist doesn't know a war asset when it literally hands us a country.
Barging into the room and still arguing as they have been for days, their entire lives, are Deamion, a feared warrior and the youngest of the three, and Seidricht, the faction's strategist and middle child. Having lived much of his life around such chaos, Orion continues staring into the fire, ignoring the two.
He poisoned his own king and queen in their sleep. What the fuck do you think he would do to Baron if we were ever in a bad spot?
And if he succeeded, that's another thing I get to hold over your head.
Deamion,
Says Orion in objection.
Oh, he speaks. Look, how many attempts has Seidricht stopped by people we didn't even see coming? This threat would practically be in his face the entire time. Seidricht, how many spies do you employ? Don't answer that. Stick one to the kid and use him to his full abilities.
oh, I dream of a time when you two go one day without filling the halls with bickering.
Entering the room is a giant of a man, almost too wide for the door itself. This is Baron, the king of the Empire.
I don't know how you do it, dear cousin.
Would you believe me if I told you I learned how to drown them out?
Would you believe me if I said it's actually you losing your hearing from old age?
Orion chucks his cup at Deamion,
Fetch me another cup, boy.
and Deamion leaves the room to do so, while Seidricht hurries to the bench beside Baron.
Baron, please talk to this kid. I'm at my wit's end. He insists on...
Seidricht, everyone in this goddamn castle knows the story. I heard you both screaming outside while I was looking over the repair efforts. By the way, I'm very impressed with the little damage you caused with the trebuchets.
That's because he wasn't the one firing them.
Look, you little shit.
Enough! God damn it! Can I just drink in peace? Look, Deamion, I tend to agree with Seidricht. The kid can't be trusted. After all, Orin and Bethany didn't deserve that fate. We sent you in to convince the troops to stand down so they could live, and this be ended peacefully. These people have been our allies for years. They have saved us, and we them. They didn't deserve this!
In his fit of rage, Baron throws his cup of ale into the fire, causing the flames to spark onto the cobblestone floor.
He found a way in when I couldn't. This fucking castle is on a mountain. I couldn't just climb up a window. Damn sure couldn't knock on the front door. After they didn't answer the battering ram, I figured they wouldn't hear me knocking. He did what none of us could. Look, I know you loved them, Baron. I understand. But they were set to starve to death long before giving this over. We had them under siege for months. Every messenger we sent was decapitated. Yeah, and Seidricht, that was you who insisted on sending the messengers, by the way. Baron, face it, that relationship ended the minute we arrived at their door. The soldiers and villagers were going to die of starvation with them. This kid killed 2 people to save hundreds, and he did it in a way where he wasn't seen, nor that caused them pain. This kid is valuable.
Cousin, I understand your pain, but this is wartime. Chaos rules. Death will come to many before it ends. One day it may be you or I who suffer it as well. Deamion is right, though. In terms of statistics, the people are more valuable to us than Orin or Bethany. You made that decision the moment you had Seidricht begin preparing the campaign. I will miss them. The late nights drinking and laughing. Knowing there was another faction that didn't want our lives. A faction we could rely on. We did what we could to avoid this, but this is just our life.
Every fucking time Deamion or I get into it, you always take his end. What, is it because he's the baby? The kid puts us all at risk. He's shown he has no qualms turning on his own.
He did turn himself in once it was done.
What are you saying?
I don't know. You both are right. But if one of you are wrong...
If Deamion is wrong, you'll never be able to sleep soundly again. If I'm wrong, a traitor is hanged for his war crimes, and Orin and Bethany are avenged.
Right, they died because of us. But we can call it even if we kill a kid who didn't want to starve to death. Sound reasoning. Oh, I belong on the field with my men, not sneaking through castles. I love the clanging of the metal, the roar of death dancing through the field. I love the scream, Seidricht. Muramasa craves the blood, and I crave a challenge. Take this kid and let him do what I don't want to do. I'm tired of being used as a coward's weapon. I want to outmaneuver my enemy. I want to look in his eyes as he realizes I'm his death. Poisoning and assassinations are not what I'm on this earth for.
Do you hear yourself sometimes? You talk about that blade of yours like it's a partner. It's possessed. It would just as soon drive you to kill yourself if you don't kill another. You're still a kid, yet you're obsessed with killing. You talk about it as if it's an art. But even still, how many wars have been averted by that very demon because you did what you didn't want? How many of your men have you saved yourself through those very assassinations? Doesn't that make it worth it?
Yes, Seidricht, it does make it worth it. But warriors just crave the battlefield. I would never allow myself to be taken from my unit. My men look to me to give them glory, to help ensure their families will never be slaves or worse to another. The enemy has to get through me and my men if they want our homes.
Seidricht, how many more battles have been saved because my unit stood between you and the enemy? We held so many lines to give you the time to turn the tide. What would you say if I demanded you leave your position in the back to fight with me in the front? Demanded you leave what you are best at to fill another role? Fighting is what I do. It's all I know. Give the assassinations to someone made for it, and let those made for battle stay on the front.
With such opposition, Seidricht begins to pace the room dejectedly. Seeing this, Orion struggles his way off the bench and places his arms around his younger brother with a deep hug.
I've never had to take your side because you've always done the right thing, taken the right course of action. It's only when Deamion actually says something smart in his arguments do I take his side.
Orion snaps a glare at Deamion and lets go of Seidricht.
I have to encourage him to use his brain more, so it's my pat on the back.
Deamion flies off the bench with his fists balled and ready to swing at Orion. But, old age or not, Orion still can get the handle on Deamion and shoves him out of the room, slamming and locking the door behind him.
Orion, you old bastard! I'm going to get an axe, chop through this fucking door, and kick your ass!
Deamion storms off down the hall, yelling the whole way.
Bring a barrel of ale with the axe!
An awkward silence falls on the room as Seidricht and Orion turn to stare at Baron.
I'm grieving. I need ale. Leave me alone.
Look, Seidricht, the point I was getting to. I fully trust you. You've kept us alive since we were younger, well before we created all of this. But you didn't do it alone. You needed to listen to Deamion and myself. Since we've created this empire, I know the stakes are higher, but you still need to trust us. Cousin, Deamion is right. He should be on the field with his men, and that kid deserves more than a hanging for saving these people from starvation.
I worked so hard when we were children because I refused for the rest of my family to be taken from me. Then, once we found Baron and began all of this, that was still my motive. And it's the very reason I refused to let that kid loose. I can't risk Baron's life, just because the war may get a little easier for us. My family isn't worth the threat, Orion. You can't ask that of me.
It isn't your decision to make anyway.
Heavy-hearted Baron stands from the bench, arms crossed and head hanging. There's a moment of silence. Then, as Baron raises his head to speak, there's a loud crash at the door.
Orion, I couldn't find an axe, but I got this halberd, and I stole it off of one of your soldiers. And I brought the ale, Baron.
Crash after crash gives Orion time to get the feel for Deamion's swings down. Then, when Deamion is in full motion forward, Orion swings the door open, and with nothing to stop the momentum, Deamion loses balance and stumbles into the room. Orion snatches the halberd from Deamion and grabs the barrel. Before Deamion can catch his footing, he's once again turned and shoved back out the door. The door is again slammed and locked.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Deamion storms off yelling once again.
You forgot cups.
I don't need one.
Baron says as he approaches the barrel, popping the top off and diving his head in. Coming up for air,
Look, I'm the one that leads the Empire after all. So ultimately, the decision is mine to make.
dunking his head in again.
Yep, your leadership is unquestionable. Baron, the alcoholic emperor.
Finally, after nearly 2 minutes, Baron rises from the barrel with a gasp and stumbles backwards onto the bench before collapsing onto it.
Stow the sarcasm. It's because of you three I'm in this state.
Right. When I was in the womb, I was sending signals to tempt you to become a bum.
Holy shit! No wonder you and Deamion never get along. You all are practically twins! Stow the sarcasm, I said. You know what I mean. I have to decide whether I want to take revenge for losing two people I came to love, people I shared many holidays and drinks with, or pardon a kid for acting on a decision brought about by my actions. Do you know how fucked up that feeling is? Excuse me, whilst I get shit-faced.
Baron rises again, and with a fast wobble over, is back at the barrel again, tilting it and raising it above his head because he has already drained so much of it. Seidricht and Orion just stare in amazement. After another couple of minutes, he drops the now empty barrel onto the floor and just collapses. Orion dashes to his side.
You keep it up and you'll end up dealing with Orin and Bethany before the night's through.
A much more sullen voice is heard from the other side of the door.
Orion, let me in. I have something you should read.
Let me guess. Your fist? You can come back in when you calm down.
Just let me in, goddammit. I'm serious.
Orion gives a nod to Seidricht to open the door, and he does. There stands Deamion, much more deflated than before, holding a piece of parchment. He walks in, handing the parchment to Seidricht, then heads to a lone bench and sits down facing away from the others. Seidricht examines the letter.
It's from Bethany?
Baron and Orion's heads snap to Seidricht in shock, while Deamion remains silent.
Where did you get that, lad?
Just read it.
It's written to you, Baron. My dear Baron, it's horrible this is what the war has come to. Owen hasn't slept in weeks.
At first, he was furious with you, so was I, to be honest. We never assumed we would be at the sword of your empire. Never. As the siege evolved, though, we began to realize how much you didn't want this either. We wept at the messages you sent us. I wanted so much to open the gate and hug you. The truth is, as much as my husband and I love you, we could never allow our family's castle to come under the rule of another while we live. Nor could we allow ourselves to become vassals to a lord, even if that person was you. We thank you for not hurting our soldiers, and I know after this is all done, you will treat them as your own. Tonight, Orin and I will end the siege for you. A young squire of ours is very handy with tonics and poisons. He's creating one as I write this. The poor child couldn't keep the tears from his eyes when we convinced him to do this. Tell Orion I'll miss his laugh. He's been through so much pain. His laugh is great to witness. I will miss yours as well, Baron. It will always echo through our halls. I doubt our servants will miss you, though. You always drain so much of our ale storage, the poor dears, having to haul all those barrels. Well, I should end this. My tears are beginning to ruin the letter. We love you, Baron.
Please end this chaos for good. With all our hearts, Oren and Bethany.
There is a long silence, only broken by sniffles. Seidricht collapses to his knees. Finally, Baron jumps up in a raging roar, kicking over the barrel.
Get that child out of that cell now!
Seidricht runs from the room, seeing the order is done.
Deamion, where did you get that letter?
They gave it to the kid's mother. She begged for his life as she gave it to me. She asked that she be hanged instead of him. Orion, she looked like Mom. Just like her.